Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're really jumping into some fascinating source material. It's all about the intersection of artificial intelligence, specifically deep learning and, well, the fight against cancer.
Yeah, it's a big topic. Cancer's been this huge challenge for, forever it feels like. So complex.
Absolutely. And we've made strides, obviously, but the sources suggest AI is bringing something fundamentally new to the table.
That's right. The need for better tools, faster diagnosis, more effective treatments, it's always there.
So our mission today is really to unpack this material, pull out the key insights, and understand how AI is actually starting to, revolutionize things. Screening, diagnosis, treatment, the whole pathway.
It's not just small tweaks. The sources really emphasize that. It's looking like a potential paradigm shift.
A new weapon in the arsenal, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's moving beyond just hype now.
Definitely. The sources point to real-world applications emerging. It's not just theory anymore.
Okay, good. So maybe before we dive into the AI specifics, let's quickly map out that traditional cancer journey the material describes. What does that usually involve for a patient?
Sure. So typically it might start with screening, right? Things like mammograms, colonoscopies, looking for cancer before symptoms appear.
Early detection efforts.
Exactly. Then if something looks suspicious or if someone has symptoms, you move into diagnosis. That usually means imaging like CT scans, MRIs.
Getting a picture of what's going on inside.
Right. And often that leads to a biopsy, taking a small tissue sample.
Which then goes to the lab.
Yes, to a pathologist. They examine it under a microscope, look for cancer cells, figure out the details. That's crucial for confirming a diagnosis.
Okay, so screening, then potentially imaging and biopsy for diagnosis. What's next?
Well, once cancer is confirmed, it's treatment planning.
Mm-hmm.
A whole team usually gets involved, oncologists, surgeons, radiologists.
Decided the best course of action.
Exactly. Based on the type of cancer, the stage, the patient's health. Could be surgery, radiation, chemo, or, the newer targeted drugs and immunotherapies. Often it's a combination.
And then the actual therapy begins, followed by monitoring.
Continuous monitoring, tracking how well the treatment is working, managing side effects, watching for recurrence. It's a long road for many patients.
And the sources, they're quite clear that this traditional path, despite amazing progress and dedicated people, has some real challenges baked in. Bottlenecks, you could say.
Oh, absolutely. The material highlights several key friction points.
Like what?
Well, for one, interpreting those screening tests. Take mammograms again. They're incredibly useful, but reading them is complex. Subtle signs can be missed, especially in dense tissue. And there's variability, Different radiologists might interpret the same subtle findings slightly differently. It's subjective to a degree.
Like looking for that needle in a haystack, but the haystack itself is kind of fuzzy sometimes.
That's a good way to put it. A very complex, very high-stakes haystack. Then there's pathology.
Analyzing the biopsy samples.
Right. It's incredibly detailed work. Pathologists look at thousands, millions of cells on slides, identifying cancer, grading how aggressive it looks, checking tumor margins.
Sounds exhausting.
It is. It's very labor-intensive, requires immense expertise. But even then, like with imaging, there can be some variability between pathologists.
And that variability could affect treatment choices down the line.
It potentially could, yes. Another big challenge mentioned is predicting treatment response.
Knowing if a particular drug will work for this patient.
Precisely. We have powerful treatments now, but figuring out up front which one will be most effective for an individual specific tumor, that's still really hard.
So there can be some trial and error.
Sometimes, yes. Which obviously isn't ideal. It can mean lost time, unnecessary side effects for the patient.
Right, makes sense.
And finally, just the sheer amount of data.
Oh, yeah.
Think about it. Clinical history, lab results, all the imaging scans, pathology reports. And now, increasingly, we have genomic data, molecular data, this omics data. It's massive.
Trying to put all those pieces together for one patient.
It's a huge cognitive load for clinicians, synthesizing everything, spotting the connections. Traditional methods just aren't really built to handle that scale of complexity, especially the omics stuff.
Okay, so that sets the stage perfectly. These challenges, subjectivity, workload, predicting response, data overload. This is where AI, particularly deep learning, comes in.
Exactly. The sources frame deep learning as this powerful catalyst, arriving precisely to tackle these kinds of problems. It's built for complexity, for finding patterns in vast data sets.
Right, deep learning. That's the type of AI inspired by the brain's neural networks. Very good at finding subtle patterns.
That's the one. And the sources show it making a huge impact right at the start of the journey, screening and diagnosis.
Where are we seeing the most dramatic effects, according to the material?
Well, enhanced image interpretation is definitely a standout area.
Okay.
These deep learning models get trained on literally millions of medical images, mammograms, CT scans, MRIs, pathology slides, you name it.
And they learn to see things.
They learn to identify patterns linked to cancer, often patterns that are maybe too subtle or too complex or just too numerous for the human eye to reliably catch every single time.
So it's like giving radiologists a kind of pattern recognition superpower.
You could think of it that way, yeah. The sources give great examples. Like in mammography, AI is showing real promise in spotting tiny microcalcifications or distortions that signal early breast cancer.
Even in difficult cases, like dense breasts.
It's especially helpful there, yes. Or analyzing lung CT scans, AI can identify those tricky pulmonary nodules and estimate how likely they are to be cancerous with remarkable accuracy.
Finding the tiny clues that might otherwise be missed.
Exactly. And similar things in dermatology, distinguishing suspicious moles from harmless ones using photos, or with prostate MRIs, helping guide biopsies to the most suspicious spots.
So fewer missed cancers, potentially fewer unnecessary biopsies too.
That's the goal. It acts like a tireless, incredibly observant second reader, boosting the capabilities of the human expert.
That's really impressive for imaging. What about the pathology lab? That other bottleneck.
Another area where deep learning is making big waves. Pathologists are increasingly working with digitized versions of biopsy slides, whole slide images.
So the glass slide becomes a huge digital file.
Right. And AI can analyze these digital images with incredible speed and detail.
What can it actually do with those slide images?
A lot, actually. It can automatically find and count cancer cells, precisely draw the boundaries of a tumor, measure features of the cell's size, shape, how they're arranged.
Things that help determine the cancer grade,
Yeah.
how aggressive it is.
Exactly. This helps pathologists work more efficiently, reduces some of that subjective variability we talked about, and lets them focus their expertise on the trickiest aspects of the case.
Freeing them up, bringing more consistency. Makes sense.
And what's really fascinating, something the sources highlight, is that AI is even starting to predict patient prognosis, how well a patient might do directly from patterns in the histology slide itself.
Wow.
Patterns that might not be obvious to the human eye, but correlate with outcomes. It's like finding hidden clues within the tissue structure.
Almost like a crystal ball, but grounded in data. Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned that overwhelming omics data earlier. How does AI help there?
Ah, yes. Genomics, transcriptomics, proteomics. This is where AI becomes almost indispensable.
Because the data sets are just too massive for humans to analyze manually.
Way too massive and incredibly complex. Cancer is driven by changes at the molecular level, right? Omics data gives us this super detailed picture, but it's hard to make sense of.
Right.
AI algorithms are brilliant at sifting through these high-dimensional data sets from thousands, even millions of patients. They can identify novel biomarkers, tiny molecular signals that might indicate cancer very, very early.
Like finding a specific gene mutation or protein pattern?
Exactly. The sources specifically mention AI's role in advancing liquid biopsies.
Ah, the blood tests that look for cancer DNA.
Yes. AI helps find those minuscule fragments of tumor DNA or other cancer signals circulating in the blood. That could revolutionize early detection. A simple blood draw.
That really would be a game changer.
It could be. AI can also integrate this omics data with clinical info to predict someone's individual risk of developing certain cancers.
Based on their unique genetic makeup and maybe lifestyle factors.
Right. And crucially for treatment development, AI helps researchers understand the complex molecular pathways that are driving a specific cancer. This helps identify new drug targets.
Finding the cancer's Achilles heel at the molecular level.
Kind of like that, yes. Identifying specific vulnerabilities we can target with new drugs.
Okay, so AI is clearly transforming how we find cancer, how we understand it fundamentally. But the sources say it doesn't stop there. It moves into personalizing the actual treatment.
Yes, absolutely. Its impact really stretches across the entire patient journey. For a long time, treatment was mainly based on, say, where the cancer started and how far it had spread.
Like it's stage 3 lung cancer, so here's the standard protocol.
Sort of, yes. But now we know every tumor is unique at the molecular level. AI is key to unlocking truly personalized treatment.
How does it do that? How does it personalize?
Well, AI systems can integrate a huge amount of data for a single patient. We're talking their tumors, specific gene mutations, protein levels, their clinical history, imaging results, pathology details.
All of it together.
All of it. And it can even compare that profile to data from thousands of similar patients, how they responded to different treatments.
Learning from past experience on a massive scale.
Exactly. By analyzing all this, AI can help predict which specific drugs or therapies are most likely to work best for that individual patient.
Moving beyond the one-size-fits-all approach.
Precisely. Getting the right drug to the right patient at the right time. This is especially vital for targeted therapies and immunotherapies.
Because those only work if the tumor has specific molecular markers.
Right. They can be incredibly effective, but only for the right patients. AI helps identify those patients, maximizing the chances of success and avoiding treatments that won't work and just cause side effects.
Okay, that's huge for selecting treatment. What about monitoring during treatment?
AI helps there too. For starters, it can help predict, even before treatment begins, how likely a patient is to respond based on their tumor profile.
Giving clinicians a better sense of prognosis.
Yes. And then during therapy, AI can analyze follow-up scans, CTs, PET scans. It looks for subtle changes in the tumor, size, density, metabolic activity.
Things that show if the treatment is working or not.
Exactly. And it can quantify those changes objectively, perhaps more consistently than visual assessment alone.
I see. Providing hard numbers on response.
Right. And this kind of analysis might detect early signs that the treatment is losing effectiveness, or that the cancer is starting to come back, sometimes even before symptoms appear.
Catching recurrence earlier.
That's the potential. This proactive monitoring allows doctors to make quicker decisions, maybe adjust the treatment plan sooner, and hopefully catch any recurrence when it's most treatable.
It really sounds like AI is involved in almost every critical step now.
Yeah.
But the sources are careful to make a point about the human element, right? It's not about replacing doctors.
That is such a crucial point, and the material really underscores it. AI is not taking over healthcare. It's augmenting clinicians.
Augmenting? How so?
It's freeing them up, taking on some of the incredibly data-intensive, sometimes repetitive tasks, like analyzing thousands of images or sifting through genomic data.
So the AI handles the heavy data lifting.
Allowing doctors, nurses, pathologists to focus their unique human skills where they're needed most. Critical thinking, complex decision-making, communication.
Empathy.
Absolutely empathy, the human connection. So the clinician's role evolves. It becomes one of collaboration with these powerful AI tools.
So doctors of the future need to be tech-savvy, in a way.
They need to understand what these tools can do, what their limitations are. That's critical. They need to be able to evaluate the insights AI provides, put them into the context of the individual patient, and use their own clinical judgment.
Using AI to have maybe deeper, more informed conversations with patients.
For sure. If AI handles some of the data crunching, that potentially leaves more time for those vital conversations, for explaining options clearly, for providing support. That human touch is irreplaceable.
Because AI can find patterns, but it can't, hold a patient's hand or understand their fears.
Exactly. It doesn't have wisdom or ethical reasoning or that compassionate connection. The sources are clear. This is about partnership. AI plus human expertise working together for better, more personalized, and ultimately more humane care.
It's a powerful vision. But like any powerful new technology, the sources must touch on challenges and ethical considerations too.
Oh, definitely. It's not all smooth sailing, and the material is realistic about the hurdles. These need careful thought.
What are some of the main ones?
Well, data privacy and security are huge. We're talking about highly sensitive patient information being used to train and run these AI systems. That needs robust protection.
Absolutely paramount.
Then there's the issue of algorithmic bias. If the data used to train AI models isn't diverse, doesn't represent all population groups,
The AI could potentially perform worse for certain groups, or even perpetuate existing health disparities.
Exactly. That's a major concern. We need to ensure fairness and equity are built in from the start.
What else?
Validation is critical. Just like any new drug, these AI tools need rigorous testing in real-world clinical settings before widespread adoption. We need solid proof they actually improve patient outcomes.
Proper clinical trials for algorithms, essentially.
Yes. And then there are the regulatory hurdles. How do agencies like the FDA approve and monitor these rapidly evolving AI tools? The frameworks are still catching up.
A moving target.
It is. And finally, a really important one, equitable access. These technologies can be expensive to develop and implement. How do we make sure everyone benefits, regardless of where they live or their socioeconomic status? We can't let AI widen the health gap.
That's a crucial ethical point, ensuring this progress benefits all.
It's an imperative, really. Responsible innovation means thinking about these challenges proactively.
So, stepping back and looking at everything these sources cover, what's the ultimate takeaway message here?
I think the main message is one of, well, profound transformation. AI, especially deep learning, is fundamentally reshaping the entire cancer journey.
From finding it earlier.
To understanding its biology better, to tailoring the treatment plan much more precisely.
Right.
The potential that shines through in the sources is just immense. Earlier diagnoses potentially leading to better survival rates, treatments matched specifically to the patient, minimizing side effects and maximizing effectiveness, and that proactive monitoring to catch problems early.
Improving not just survival, but quality of life, too.
Exactly. And a key point the material makes is that this isn't some far-off dream. This is tangible progress happening now. We're seeing these tools being developed, validated, and starting to enter clinical practice.
So it's hopeful, but grounded in current reality.
Very much so. It paints a picture of a future, maybe not too distant, where cancer becomes a much more manageable disease, maybe even preventable or curable in many more cases, thanks in large part to these AI advancements.
It really does feel like a potential game changer in this long fight.
The potential is certainly there, offering capabilities we could only imagine a decade or so ago.
Okay, reflecting on all this.
Yeah.
And the incredible speed of AI development, here's something to think about. How quickly do you think we might realistically see these kinds of groundbreaking AI applications become truly standard practice in cancer care across the globe? And what are the biggest steps you feel are needed to make sure that happens and happens equitably?